Have you ever noticed how the most successful people in the world are often the most humble and tight-lipped about their work? They don't brag about their achievements or constantly talk about what they're up to. Instead, they quietly go about their business, letting their results speak for themselves. This approach of zipping your mouth and never telling people what you do is a powerful strategy that I believe we can all learn from. You see, when you constantly talk about your plans and goals, you dissipate the energy and motivation needed to actually achieve them. It's like letting the air out of a balloon. The more you talk, the less power and drive you have left to take action. But when you keep your mouth shut and channel all your efforts into doing the work, magic starts to happen. Think about a time in your life when you set a big goal for yourself. Maybe it was starting a business, getting in shape, learning a new skill, or achieving a lifelong dream. How many people did you tell about it? Did you post about it on social media, talk about it constantly with friends and family, and make grand declarations about how this was going to be your year? If you're like most people, you probably told a lot of folks about your ambitions. And what happened? More often than not, talking about our goals doesn't lead to achieving them. We lose steam, get discouraged by people's opinions and doubts, or simply lose interest once the excitement of sharing wears off. The more we talk, the less we do. But what if you took a different approach? What if, instead of announcing your plans to the world, you held them close to your heart and poured all your energy into quietly working towards them day after day? What if you zipped your mouth, put your head down, and let your efforts do the talking? This is the way of the most successful people I know. They don't seek validation or praise from others. They don't need the dopamine hit of likes and comments on social media. Instead, they find their motivation and fulfillment from within. They know that the real reward comes not from talking about what they're going to do, but from actually doing it. Think of someone you admire who embodies this approach. Maybe it's a successful entrepreneur, a world-class athlete, a brilliant artist or inventor. Chances are they don't go around boasting about their accomplishments or constantly updating the world on their progress. Instead, they let their work speak for itself. And when they do achieve something remarkable, it almost seems to come out of nowhere because they weren't seeking attention or fanfare along the way. This is such a different mindset from how most of us operate. We've been conditioned to seek external validation, to look for likes and followers, to constantly broadcast our lives on social media. But when we do this, I believe we give away our power. We hand over the keys to our motivation and drive and allow ourselves to be influenced by the opinions and expectations of others. But when you zip your mouth and direct all that energy within, you tap into a deep well of intrinsic motivation and focus. You're no longer concerned about what others think or seeking approval for your actions. You're fully committed to your path, fueled by an inner fire that can't be extinguished by outside forces. Now, this doesn't mean you should never share your dreams or connect with others. There is certainly a time and a place for that. But I encourage you to be selective and intentional about whom you share with and why. Surround yourself with people who inspire and support you, but don't feel the need to constantly update them on your every move. Have faith in your journey and trust that your dedication will lead you to where you're meant to go. As you embrace this approach of keeping your goals and plans close to your chest, you may find that others start to view you differently. They may see a newfound confidence and determination in your demeanor. They may feel drawn to your mystery and the quiet power you exude. And when you do achieve something amazing, they'll be that much more impressed and inspired because they didn't see all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it behind the scenes. But this isn't about seeking external admiration. That's just a potential side effect. The real transformation happens within you. When you stop talking and start doing, you retrain your mind to find motivation from an endless source that isn't dependent on people, circumstances, or validation. You develop unshakable self-reliance and trust in your abilities, and you free up so much mental energy and space that would otherwise be wasted on worrying what others think. So starting today, I want to challenge you to experiment with zipping your mouth and focusing your energy where it matters most on doing the work. Pick one goal or project that really lights you up, something that you've been talking about but haven't fully committed to. Now, make a promise to yourself that for the next 30 days, you won't share anything about this goal with anyone. You'll simply work on it quietly, day after day, trusting in the process and your own abilities. Notice how this shifts your mindset and motivation. Without the distraction of external input or the pressure to prove yourself, you can dive fully into the task at hand. You may find yourself more focused, more productive, and more inspired than ever before. And at the end of those 30 days, regardless of what you've achieved, you will have built an incredible new habit of self-reliance and intrinsic drive. From there, keep going. Make this your new default approach. Whenever you find yourself tempted to share prematurely or seek validation, gently remind yourself to zip it. Redirect that energy back into your efforts, and watch as you start to achieve things you never thought possible. As you do this, you'll start to notice something incredible. The more you keep your goals to yourself, the more people will start to notice your results. They'll see the changes in your life, the way you carry yourself, the cool things you're creating and achieving. And they'll be genuinely curious and inspired, not because you told them to be, but because your actions speak volumes. This approach to life is truly transformative. It's not easy, and it requires a lot of self-awareness and discipline. But when you master the art of zipping your mouth and channeling all that talk into real, focused action, you become unstoppable. You tap into a higher level of motivation and manifestation, one that isn't swayed by the whims of others or dependent on external rewards. So I encourage you to give this a try starting today. Embrace the power of silence, of holding your dreams and plans close to your heart. Trust in your own abilities and in the journey ahead. And watch as your life starts to change in ways you never imagined. Remember, the most successful people in the world don't need to tell everyone what they're doing, they just do it. They let their actions and results speak for themselves. And when you adopt this same mindset, you open up a whole new world of possibility and potential. So zip it, my friend. Keep your goals quietly burning inside you, and let that fire fuel your efforts day after day. Trust that the universe will conspire to support you when you're fully committed and aligned. And know that your greatest achievements will come not from talking about what you're going to do, but from simply doing it with all your heart and soul. As you go forth from here, carry this message with you. Let it be a reminder to stay focused, to trust in yourself, and to let your actions speak louder than your words ever could. The power to achieve anything you desire lies within you. You simply have to get out of your own way and let it shine through. So go out there and make it happen. Chase your dreams with quiet determination and unwavering faith. And trust that when you zip your mouth and pour all your energy into creating, the universe will open doors and present opportunities beyond your wildest imagination. Your time is now. Go seize it and never look back. Continuing. This approach to pursuing your goals and creating success isn't just about keeping your mouth shut, of course. It's about fundamentally shifting the way you operate in the world. It's about developing a deep trust in yourself and the journey ahead, even when you can't see the whole path laid out before you. So many of us get caught up in needing to know every step of the plan, to have all the answers and a clear roadmap to follow. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. The greatest opportunities and breakthroughs often come from staying open and adaptable, from being willing to take action without knowing exactly where it will lead. When you zip your mouth and focus on putting one foot in front of the other, day after day you develop a resilience and adaptability that will serve you in every area of life. You learn to trust the process, to stay committed even when things get tough, and to find joy and fulfillment in the journey itself, not just the destination. This is the mindset of true creators and achievers. They don't wait for perfect conditions or a clear path ahead. They simply start where they are, with what they have, and trust that the way will reveal itself as they go. They find motivation from within, fueled by a burning desire to bring their vision to life no matter what. And as you cultivate this same mindset, you'll start to notice shifts in every area of your life. Your relationships will deepen as you become a better listener and more present in your interactions. Your work will become more fulfilling as you pour your energy into creating rather than seeking validation. And your sense of self will expand as you develop unshakable confidence and trust in your abilities. But don't just take my word for it, try it out for yourself. Start small with just one area of your life where you've been talking more than doing. Make a commitment to zip your mouth and focus all your energy on taking consistent action day after day. See how it feels to let go of the need for external validation and find your motivation from within. As you start to see the results of this approach, let it inspire you to go deeper. Look for more opportunities to apply this mindset in your work, your relationships, your personal growth. Embrace the power of silence and focused action, and watch as your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what about accountability? What about the power of sharing your goals with others to stay on track? And I get it, there is certainly value in having supportive people in your corner, cheering you on and holding you accountable. But here's the thing, true accountability comes from within. It comes from making a commitment to yourself and following through, no matter what. It comes from developing such a strong sense of integrity and self-respect that you simply won't allow yourself to let yourself down. When you zip your mouth and focus on taking action, you develop this inner accountability. You learn to show up for yourself even when no one else is watching. You build an unbreakable trust in yourself and your ability to follow through. And that, my friends, is the most powerful form of accountability there is. So as you go forward from here, let this be your guiding principle. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Let your dedication and commitment be the driving force behind all that you do. And trust that when you stay true to yourself and keep showing up day after day, the universe will conspire to support you in ways beyond your wildest dreams. This is the path of the quiet achievers, the ones who let their results speak for themselves. It's not always the easiest path, but I promise you it's the most fulfilling. When you learn to find your validation and motivation from within, you become truly unstoppable. You tap into a power and resilience that can weather any storm and overcome any obstacle. So I invite you to join me on this path, to experiment with zipping your mouth and focusing your energy where it matters most, to trust in the journey and in your own incredible abilities, and to let your life be a living testament to the power of quiet action and unwavering commitment. As we come to the close of our time together today, I want to leave you with one final thought. Your dreams and goals are precious. They are the unique expression of your soul's purpose and potential. Don't let them be drowned out by the noise of the world or the opinions of others. Hold them close, nurture them in the quiet of your own heart, and trust that as you take consistent action, they will come to fruition in ways even grander than you can imagine. You have everything you need within you to create the life of your dreams. The power, the wisdom, the creativity, it's all there, just waiting to be tapped. So trust yourself, trust the journey, and keep showing up day after day. The world needs what you have to offer, and your quiet dedication and commitment will be the catalyst that brings it all to life. So go forth from here with a new sense of clarity and purpose. Embrace the power of zipping your mouth and letting your actions speak for themselves. And know that as you do, you are stepping into your highest potential and creating a ripple effect of inspiration and impact that will touch countless lives. Your time is now, my friend. Your moment to shine. So trust the journey, keep showing up, and let your light illuminate the world. The best is yet to come, and I can't wait to see all the incredible things you will create and achieve. Now, as we close this chapter together, I want to remind you that this is just the beginning. The journey of personal growth and self-discovery is a lifelong one with new lessons and opportunities at every turn. But armed with this powerful principle of zipping your mouth and focusing your energy on taking action, you are now equipped with a tool that can serve you in every area of life. As you go forward, remember to be patient and compassionate with yourself. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of small, consistent efforts compounded over time. There will be days when you slip back into old habits of seeking validation or talking more than doing, and that's okay. Simply notice it, redirect your energy, and keep moving forward. And as you continue to grow and evolve, remember to pay it forward. Share this message with others who may need to hear it. Lead by example and inspire those around you with your quiet dedication and unwavering commitment. Be the change you wish to see in the world, and trust that your impact will ripple out in ways you can't even imagine. So thank you for joining me on this journey today. Thank you for opening your mind and heart to this powerful principle. And thank you for being a shining example of what's possible when we learn to trust ourselves and let our actions speak louder than our words. I believe in you and I am cheering you on every step of the way. Keep shining, keep growing, and keep embracing the power of zipping your mouth and letting your light illuminate the world. The best is yet to come, and I can't wait to see all the incredible things you will achieve. You know what separates the truly powerful from everyone else? It's not what they say, it's what they don't say. I learned this the hard way, and today I'm going to share with you the 8 situations where your silence will become your greatest weapon. But before I dive in, let me tell you something that will change your life forever. The person who masters silence masters their destiny. I used to be the guy who had something to say about everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every argument, I was there, mud running, thinking I was proving how smart I was, until one day I realized something that hit me like a lightning bolt. The most successful people I knew, the ones who commanded real respect, they barely spoke. When they did, everyone listened. That's when I understood that words are like money. The more you spend, the less valuable they become. Think about this for a moment. We live in a world where everyone is screaming to be heard. Social media, conversations, meetings, it's all noise. But what if I told you that in this chaos of voices, your silence could be the loudest sound in the room? What if I told you that by choosing when not to speak, you could gain more power than any words could ever give you? The first situation where you must embrace silence is when someone is trying to provoke you. I call this the trap of emotional reaction. Picture this. Someone says something that cuts deep, something designed to make you explode. Your blood boils, your face gets hot, and every fiber of your being wants to fire back with something equally hurtful or defensive. This is the moment where 99% of people fail. They take the bait, they react, they lose. But here's what I discovered. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain silent, something magical happens. First, they don't get the satisfaction they're looking for. They threw their best punch and you didn't even flinch. Second, and this is crucial, your silence makes them question themselves. Did you not hear them? Are you so unbothered that their words mean nothing? This uncertainty is your power while they're trying to figure you out. You've already won. I remember being in a business meeting where a competitor tried to embarrass me in front of potential clients. He brought up a past failure, twisted the story, and painted me as incompetent. The old me would have defended myself, explained the situation, maybe even attacked back. Instead, I looked at him, gave a slight smile, and said nothing. The room went quiet. Everyone was waiting for my response, but I just moved on to the next point of my presentation. By the end of that meeting, I had signed the biggest deal of my career. Why? Because my silence spoke volumes about my confidence and professionalism. The second situation demands your silence when you're in the presence of someone sharing their pain or struggles. This is where most people mess up catastrophically. Someone opens up about their problems, and what do? We immediately jump in with advice, with our own similar stories, with solutions they didn't ask for. We think we're helping, but we're actually stealing their moment. When someone is pouring their heart out, your job isn't to fix them. Your job is to be a witness to their experience. Your silence gives them space to express what they've been holding inside. It tells them without words that their feelings are valid, that they're being heard, that they matter. This kind of silence is a gift that few people know how to give. I learned this lesson when my closest friend was going through a divorce. Every time we met, I had advice, I had strategies, I had similar stories from other people. One day he looked at me and said, "Can you just listen?" That's when it hit me. My words, no matter how well-intentioned, were drowning out what he really needed, someone to simply be there. From that day forward, I practiced the art of silent support. And you know what? Our friendship became deeper than ever before. The third situation where silence becomes your superpower is during negotiations. Whether you're negotiating a salary, a business deal, or even something as simple as the price of a car, the person who speaks first after the offer loses. This is a law as fundamental as gravity in the world of negotiation. Here's why this works. When you make your offer or state your position and then remain silent, you create pressure, not on yourself, but on the other person. They feel compelled to fill the void, and in filling that void, they often reveal information you couldn't have gotten any other way. They might improve their offer. They might show their hand. They might negotiate against themselves. I once sat in a negotiation for a major contract. After stating our price, which was significantly higher than what they expected, I shut my mouth. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity, probably 45 seconds. The other party started fidgeting. Then they started talking. First, they explained why the price was too high. Then, without me saying a word, they started suggesting ways they could make it work. By the time they finished talking, they had essentially agreed to 90% of what we asked for, all because I knew when to stop talking. The fourth situation is perhaps the most challenging for people in our modern age. When you're surrounded by gossip. We live in a culture that thrives on talking about others. It's entertainment, it's bonding, it's also poison. When you're in a group and the conversation turns to gossip about someone who isn't there, your silence becomes a statement of character. But here's the tricky part. If you speak up against the gossip, you might come across as preachy or holier than thou. If you participate, you become part of the problem. The solution? Strategic silence. Don't contribute, don't laugh, don't nod in agreement, just be quiet. Change the subject when you get the chance. Your silence in these moments builds a reputation that money can't buy, the reputation of someone who can be trusted. I've watched careers get destroyed by gossip. I've seen friendships end and opportunities vanish because someone couldn't keep their mouth shut about others. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen people rise to incredible heights simply because they were known as the person who never spoke ill of others. When you refuse to participate in gossip through your silence, you become the person everyone trusts with their secrets. You become the safe space in a world full of judgment. The fifth situation where silence serves you is when you're learning something new. We live in an era where everyone wants to appear smart. We interrupt with questions to show we're engaged. We share related experiences to prove we understand. We nod and make sounds of agreement. But all of this noise prevents us from truly absorbing what's being taught. True learning happens in silence. When you're quiet, really quiet, you pick up on nuances that others miss. You hear the things that aren't being said. You notice the body language, the hesitations, the emphasis. You absorb not just the information, but the wisdom behind it. This is why the greatest students are often the quietest ones. They understand that every moment spent talking is a moment not spent learning. It transformed my life when I learned to be silent during learning opportunities. Whether it was in business seminars, personal development workshops, or even casual conversations with successful people, I practiced extreme listening. No interruptions, no clever questions to show off my knowledge, just pure, focused silence. The amount of wisdom I absorbed during these silent periods laid the foundation for everything I've achieved. The sixth situation is when you've accomplished something significant. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, shouldn't you celebrate your wins? Shouldn't you share your success? Yes, but not immediately, and not with everyone. When you achieve something great, and you immediately broadcast it, you dilute its power. You turn your achievement into just another social media post, another humble brag, another piece of noise in an already noisy world. Silence after success serves multiple purposes. First, it allows you to fully experience and internalize your achievement. You get to savor it without the need for external validation. Second, it creates mystery. When people eventually find out about your success, and they will, the fact that you didn't announce it makes it even more impressive. It shows that your achievements are for you, not for applause. I built a multi-million-dollar business, and most people in my life didn't know about it for years, not because I was hiding it, but because I wasn't advertising it. When people eventually found out, their respect for me multiplied. They realized I was the kind of person who did things for the satisfaction of doing them, not for the recognition. This kind of silence builds a different level of credibility. The seventh situation where silence is golden is when you're angry. Anger is like fire. It consumes everything in its path, including the person feeling it. When you speak from anger, you say things you can't take back. You make decisions you regret. You burn bridges that took years to build. But when you choose silence in your anger, you give yourself the greatest gift possible. Silence in anger doesn't mean suppression. It means creating space between the feeling and the response. It means recognizing that your angry words will not achieve what you want them to achieve. They won't make you feel better. They won't solve the problem. They'll only create new problems. Every relationship I've seen destroyed, every opportunity I've watched vanish, every reputation I've witnessed crumble, they all had one thing in common: words spoken in anger. I developed a rule for myself. When I feel anger rising, I go silent for 24 hours. No texts, no emails, no conversations about whatever triggered me. This silence has saved me more times than I can count. It's prevented me from sending that resignation letter I would have regretted. It's stopped me from ending relationships that just needed understanding. It's kept me from making business decisions that would have cost me everything. The eighth, and perhaps most important situation for silence, is when you need to hear your own inner voice. We live in a world of constant input. From the moment we wake up to the moment we sleep, we're bombarded with other people's thoughts, opinions, and agendas. Social media, news, conversations, entertainment is endless. In this chaos, the most important voice, your own inner wisdom, gets drowned out. This is why the most successful people I know have regular periods of complete silence. Not just quiet, but intentional silence, where they disconnect from all input and simply exist with their thoughts. In these moments of silence, clarity emerges. Solutions to problems appear. The noise of the world fades, and what remains is truth. I practice this kind of silence every morning. Before I check my phone, before I speak to anyone, before I let the world in, I sit in complete silence for at least an hour. In this silence, I've discovered business ideas that have made me millions. I've found solutions to problems that seemed impossible. I've gained clarity on relationships, on purpose, on direction. This silence is where my power regenerates. But here's something crucial about mastering silence that nobody talks about. Silence isn't just about not speaking. True silence is about creating space. Space in your mind, space in your reactions, space in your life. It's about understanding that not every thought needs to be expressed, not every opinion needs to be shared, not every battle needs to be fought. When you master silence, you master yourself. You become the person who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. You become comfortable with being misunderstood because you know your truth doesn't require explanation. You become powerful in ways that transcend words because your presence speaks volumes. Think about the most influential people in history. They weren't the ones who talked the most. They were the ones who knew when to speak and when to remain silent. They understood that words are tools, and like any tool, they're only effective when used at the right time, in the right way, for the right purpose. Random talking is like swinging a hammer at everything. You might hit a few nails, but you'll destroy a lot more in the process. There's a deeper psychology to why silence is so powerful. When you speak less, people lean in more. When you're selective with your words, each word carries more weight. When you master the art of silence, you become like a deep well. People know that when they draw from you, they'll get something valuable, not just surface-level noise. I've tested this in every area of my life. In business meetings, the less I speak, the more my words impact when I do. In relationships, my silence creates space for deeper connection. In conflicts, my refusal to engage in verbal warfare often resolves issues faster than any argument could. This isn't about being passive or weak. This is about being strategic and strong. Let me share something that will revolutionize how you think about communication. We've been taught that communication is about expressing ourselves, about making sure we're heard and understood, but true communication is about creating understanding, and sometimes the best way to create understanding is through silence. Your silence can communicate confidence, wisdom, strength, compassion, and intelligence in ways your words never could. I've walked into rooms where my silence commanded more respect than any introduction could have given me. I've sat in meetings where my quiet observation led to insights that changed the entire direction of companies. I've been in arguments where my refusal to argue led to the other person solving the problem themselves. This is the paradox of silence. By saying nothing, you often say everything. But mastering silence isn't easy. We're conditioned from birth to fill voids with sound. We're uncomfortable with quiet. We associate silence with awkwardness, with not knowing what to say, with weakness. This conditioning runs so deep that most people will never experience the power of intentional silence. They'll live their entire lives in reaction mode. Speaking before thinking, responding before understanding, talking before listening. The journey to mastering silence starts with awareness. Start noticing your urge to speak. Notice how uncomfortable you feel when there's a pause in conversation. Notice how desperately you want to share your opinion, your story, your advice. Then, instead of acting on these urges, pause. Let the silence exist. Let it do its work. You'll be amazed at what happens when you start practicing this. Conversations become richer because you're actually listening instead of waiting for your turn to talk. People start confiding in you more because they sense you're not judging or preparing to give advice. Your presence becomes more powerful because it's not diluted by unnecessary words. I want to address something important here. Some people might think that embracing silence means becoming passive or disconnected. Nothing could be further from the truth. The silence I'm talking about is active, intentional, and powerful. It's the silence of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike, not the silence of prey frozen in fear. It's the silence of wisdom, not ignorance. It's the silence of strength, not weakness. When you understand this distinction, everything changes. You realize that your silence is a choice, not a limitation. You understand that by choosing when not to speak, you're exercising the highest form of self-control. You're demonstrating mastery over your impulses, your ego, and your need for validation. This is what separates ordinary people from extraordinary ones. Let's go deeper into each of these situations because understanding them intellectually is one thing, but implementing them is another. When someone is trying to provoke you, the urge to defend yourself is primal. It's rooted in our survival instincts. But we're not living in caves anymore. The threats we face aren't physical, they're psychological. And psychological warfare requires different tactics. Your silence in the face of provocation is like a mirror. It reflects the attacker's energy back at them. They see their own aggression, their own pettiness, their own insecurity, and because you're not giving them the reaction they want, they're forced to confront these aspects of themselves. This is why silence in these situations often leads to the provocateur either escalating to the point of looking foolish or backing down entirely. I'd use this technique in boardrooms where competitors try to undermine me. I'd use it in personal relationships where people try to manipulate me through emotional triggers. Every single time, my silence was more powerful than any words I could have chosen. It communicated that I was above the petty games, that I couldn't be controlled through emotional manipulation, that I was operating on a different level entirely. When it comes to being silent while others share their pain, this is perhaps the most compassionate form of silence. We live in a fix-it culture. Someone shares a problem and we immediately want to solve it. But most of the time, people don't need solutions. They need to be heard. They need to feel that their pain is valid, that their struggles matter, that they're not alone. Your silence in these moments is a sacred space. It's a container where people can pour out their hearts without fear of judgment or unsolicited advice. This kind of listening, this kind of presence is so rare in our world that when you offer it, you become invaluable to the people in your life. You become the person they turn to, not because you have all the answers, but because you have the wisdom to know when answers aren't what's needed. In negotiations, silence is your tactical advantage. Every negotiation has a rhythm, a dance of offers and counteroffers, of positions and concessions. When you introduce strategic silence into this dance, you disrupt the rhythm in your favor. The other party expects you to respond immediately to their offer. When you don't, it creates cognitive dissonance. They start wondering if their offer was too low, if they've reread the situation, if they need to sweeten the deal. I've sat in negotiations where my silence led to the other party increasing their offer 3 times without me saying a word. They literally negotiated against themselves because they couldn't handle the pressure of the silence. This isn't about being manipulative. This is about understanding human psychology and using it ethically to achieve fair outcomes. If your position is reasonable and your silence leads to a better deal, you've simply used a tool that's available to everyone but mastered by few. The silence you maintain around gossip is a testament to your character. In every organization, in every social group, there are people who bond through talking about others. It's an easy way to feel connected, to feel superior, to feel like you're part of the inner circle, but this temporary connection comes at a huge cost. It erodes trust, creates toxic environments, and ultimately limits your growth. When you refuse to participate in gossip, something interesting happens. At first, people might think you're aloof or judgmental, but over time, they realize you're trustworthy. They start sharing real things with you, not just surface-level gossip. They seek your advice on important matters. They recommend you for opportunities because they know you can be trusted. Your silence in the face of gossip becomes your calling card, your reputation, your personal brand. Learning in silence is about humility. It's about recognizing that no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn. It's about understanding that your questions and comments, no matter how insightful you think they are, might be preventing you from receiving the full transmission of knowledge. When you're truly silent while learning, you pick up on subtleties that others miss. You hear the wisdom between the words. You absorb not just information, but understanding. I've sat with masters in various fields, and the most valuable lessons came not from what they said, but from what I observed in silence. The way they moved, the way they thought, the way they approached problems. These things can only be absorbed in quiet observation. Your clever questions might make you feel smart, but your silence makes you wise. Being silent about your successes is about understanding the true nature of achievement. When you achieve something significant and immediately share it with the world, you're seeking external validation. You're saying that your achievement isn't complete until others acknowledge it. But when you can achieve something and be satisfied with your own knowledge of it, you've reached a different level of maturity and self-assurance. This doesn't mean you never share your successes. It means you're selective about when, how, and with whom you share them. It means your sharing comes from a place of contribution, not neediness. When you do eventually share, it's to inspire others or to teach, not to seek approval. This kind of sharing has a completely different energy, and people can feel it. The silence you maintain when angry is perhaps the most practical form of wisdom. Anger clouds judgment. It narrows perspective. It makes smart people do stupid things. When you speak from anger, you're not speaking from your highest self. You're speaking from a triggered, reactive place that doesn't represent who you really are or what you really want. I've seen people destroy decades-long friendships with words spoken in a moment of anger. I've watched careers end because someone couldn't keep their mouth shut when they were triggered. I've witnessed business partnerships dissolve because partners spoke to each other from places of hurt and rage instead of taking time to cool down and approach issues rationally. Your silence when angry isn't suppression, it's wisdom in action. Creating silence to hear your inner voice is about recognizing that you have an internal guidance system. that's always available, but often drowned out by external noise. This inner voice isn't some mystical concept. It's your accumulated wisdom, your intuition, your deeper knowing that emerges when you create space for it. In our noisy world, this inner voice is your competitive advantage. It's your direct line to insights and solutions that others miss because they're too busy consuming and reacting. The practice of regular silence, of creating these spaces in your life, is what separates those who react to life from those who create their lives. In silence, you can hear what you really want, not what you've been programmed to want. You can feel what's truly important to you, not what society says should be important. You can access solutions that come from your unique perspective and experience, not from what you've read or heard from others. As I continue sharing these insights with you, I want you to understand that mastering silence is a journey, not a destination. You won't get it right every time. There will be moments when you speak when you should have remained silent. There will be times when your silence is misinterpreted. There will be situations where finding the balance between speaking and not speaking feels impossible. This is all part of the process. What matters is that you start. What matters is that you begin to see silence not as the absence of something, but as the presence of everything. In silence, there's power. In silence, there's wisdom. In silence, there's connection. In silence, there's clarity. Most importantly, in silence, there's choice. The choice to respond rather than react. The choice to observe rather than judge. The choice to understand. And I want to share with you some advanced strategies for implementing silence in your life. First, start small. Don't try to become a master of silence overnight. Pick one situation from the 8 I've shared and focus on that for a week. Maybe you start with not responding to provocation. Every time someone tries to trigger you this week, practice your silence. Notice what happens. Notice how it feels. Notice the results. Once you've gotten comfortable with one form of silence, add another. Layer these practices until they become second nature. You'll know you're making progress when silence starts to feel more natural than speaking. When your default becomes observation rather than participation. When you find yourself automatically pausing before responding to anything. There's a phenomenon I've observed in people who master silence. They develop what I call presence. When they walk into a room, people notice. Not because they're loud or attention-seeking, but because they carry a different energy. They're centered. They're grounded. They're not trying to prove anything to anyone. This presence is magnetic. It draws people in. It commands respect without demanding it. This presence comes from the confidence that silence builds. When you know you can handle any situation without needing to speak, when you trust your ability to remain centered regardless of what's happening around you, when you've proven to yourself that your power doesn't come from your words but from your being, you carry yourself differently. You move through the world with a quiet confidence that others can sense but can't quite explain. The difference between leaders and followers isn't intelligence, education, or even opportunity. It's knowing when to keep your mouth shut. Followers feel compelled to comment on everything, defend every decision, and prove their worth through constant chatter. Leaders speak only when their words can create value, influence outcomes, or solve problems, while everyone else is competing for airtime. True leaders are controlling the conversation through strategic silence. They understand that the person asking the questions has more power than the person providing the answers. They know that revealing less makes people assume you know more. They've learned that in a world full of noise, silence is the ultimate attention getter. The most powerful person in any room isn't the one talking the most. It's the one everyone turns to when they finally stop talking. Your mouth can make you a leader or mark you as a follower, but it can't do both. Your mouth can make you or break you. I want to tell you about Marcus, a brilliant young executive who had everything going for him. Sharp mind, excellent education, natural charisma.
He was sitting across from 3 potential investors who were ready to write him a check for $1 million. The deal was practically done. All he had to do was answer their questions and sign the papers. But Marcus had one fatal flaw. He couldn't stop talking. What should have been a 30-minute meeting turned into 3 hours of Marcus explaining every detail, every backup plan, every possibility. He talked about his childhood dreams, his college experiences, his philosophy of business. The investors kept trying to steer the conversation back to the deal. But Marcus kept going. He thought he was impressing them with his knowledge and passion by the end of that meeting. The investors had changed their minds. Not because the business plan was bad, but because they realized Marcus didn't know when to be quiet. If he couldn't control his mouth in a simple meeting, how could they trust him to lead a company? That $1 million opportunity walked out the door because Marcus never learned the power of silence. Your mouth is not just a body part. It's either your greatest asset or your most dangerous weapon. Every word that comes out of it has the power to build bridges or burn them down. Every sentence can open doors or slam them shut forever. Most people don't understand this. They think talking is free. But I'm here to tell you that words are the most expensive currency you'll ever spend. You see, there's a difference between having something to say and having to say something. Marcus had to say something about everything. He felt uncomfortable with silence, so he filled every gap with words. But successful people understand that silence is not empty space. It's fertile ground where wisdom grows. When you zip your mouth at the right moment, you give yourself time to think. You give others space to reveal themselves. You create an atmosphere where real communication can happen. But when you let your mouth run wild, you lose control of the conversation. And more importantly, you lose control of the outcome. I've watched people destroy 20-year friendships with one careless sentence. I've seen marriages crumble because someone couldn't hold their tongue during an argument. I've witnessed careers end because an employee said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. Your mouth doesn't just express your thoughts, it shapes your destiny. The problem is that most people have never been taught the art of strategic silence. We live in a world that rewards noise. Social media has convinced us that we need to have an opinion about everything and share it immediately. We think that speaking up always shows strength. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay quiet. Think about the most respected person you know. I guarantee you they're not the loudest person in the room. They don't feel the need to comment on every topic or correct every error they hear. They speak when their words add value, not just because they have vocal cords. There's a proverb that says, even a fool is considered wise when he keeps his mouth shut. That's because silence has a way of making people assume you know more than you're saying. When you're always talking, people can measure your intelligence by your words. But when you're selective with your speech, they have to guess at your wisdom. And they usually guess high. Marcus learned this lesson the hard way after losing that $1 million deal. He spent the next year observing successful people. He noticed that they asked more questions than they answered. They listened more than they spoke. They were comfortable with pauses in conversation. They didn't feel the need to fill every moment with their voice. When Marcus finally got another shot at investor funding, he did something different. He prepared 3 key points he wanted to make. And that's all he said. When the investors asked questions, he gave direct, concise answers. When they stopped talking, he didn't jump in to fill the silence. He let them think. That second meeting lasted 45 minutes. Marcus spoke for maybe 10 of those minutes total. And you know what happened? He got the funding. Not just the amount he asked for, but more than he originally requested. The investors were impressed by his self-control and clarity. Your mouth is like a faucet. It should have an on and off switch that you control. Most people have broken faucets that just keep running. They leak words everywhere, creating floods of confusion and mess. But when you learn to control the flow, you can direct your words exactly where they need to go for maximum impact. The power of silence isn't about being antisocial or unfriendly. It's about being intentional with your communication. It's about understanding that every word carries weight. And if you're going to spend that currency, you better make sure you're getting a good return on your investment when you zip your mouth strategically. You're not hiding your thoughts. You're protecting your power. You're saving your words for moments when they can create the most value. You're building a reputation as someone whose words matter because they're rare and well chosen. The mouth that never stops talking loses its authority. But the mouth that speaks with purpose commands attention and respect. That's the difference between noise and influence, between chatter and communication, between speaking and being heard. But let me tell you what happens when you don't control your mouth. Let me tell you about Rebecca, a woman who had everything going for her until she opened her mouth one too many times. Rebecca was the regional manager for a major corporation, smart, hardworking, respected by her team. She had been with the company for 8 years and was in line for a promotion to vice president. Her future looked bright until one afternoon when she stepped into an elevator with Janet, another manager from a different department, and was just the two of them in that elevator, going up 12 floors. Janet mentioned that she had heard rumors about budget cuts coming. Instead of staying professional, Rebecca saw an opportunity to share what she knew. She started talking about the CEO's personal financial problems, about the argument she had overheard between two board members, about her suspicions that the company was hiding debt. Rebecca thought she was just having a casual conversation with a colleague. But Janet wasn't just any colleague. She was married to one of the board members. Every word Rebecca spoke in that elevator was being mentally recorded and would be repeated that very evening at Janet's dinner table within 48 hours. Rebecca was called into the CEO's office, not for her promotion, but for her termination. 8 years of excellent work destroyed by 8 minutes of loose lips. Here's what Rebecca didn't understand. Words have wings. Once they leave your mouth, you cannot control where they fly or where they land. That conversation in the elevator didn't stay in the elevator. It traveled to a dinner table, then to a boardroom, then to a legal department. Rebecca's words created ripples that became waves that eventually crashed back on her own career. Your words don't just affect you, they affect everyone they touch. When you speak carelessly about others, you're not just sharing information. You're planting seeds of doubt, suspicion, and distrust. These seeds grow in ways you never intended and create consequences you never imagined. So Rebecca's problem wasn't that she was a bad person. Her problem was that she had never learned the discipline of keeping certain thoughts to herself. She confused having information with having the right to share it. She thought because she knew something, she had permission to say it. But wisdom understands that knowledge and the right to speak are two different things. Just because you know your neighbor's business doesn't mean you should discuss it. Just because you witness something doesn't mean you should broadcast it. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean everyone needs to hear it. Every time you open your mouth to speak about someone else's private matters, you're making a withdrawal from your reputation account. People might enjoy hearing the gossip in the moment, but they also make a mental note that you cannot be trusted with sensitive information. They realize that if you talk about others to them, you'll probably talk about them to others. Rebecca discovered this the hard way. After word got out about why she was fired, her professional network started avoiding her. Former colleagues stopped returning her calls. Other companies were hesitant to hire her because they had heard she couldn't keep confidential information confidential. Her loose lips didn't just cost her one job, they damaged her entire career trajectory. The tongue is small, but it can start big fires. One careless comment can destroy relationships that took years to build. One moment of poor judgment in your speech can create consequences that last for decades. Rebecca learned that words are like bullets. Once you fire them, you cannot take them back. And the damage they cause can be permanent. What makes this even more tragic is that Rebecca's conversation in that elevator served no purpose. It didn't solve any problems, didn't help anyone, didn't accomplish anything positive. She destroyed her career for absolutely nothing. She gave up her future for the temporary satisfaction of sharing gossip. This is the cost of undisciplined speech. When you cannot control your mouth ends up controlling your life. When you let words flow freely without wisdom, those same words will eventually flow back to drown you. But here's what I want you to understand. Rebecca's story doesn't have to be your story. You can learn from her mistakes without making them yourself. You can choose to zip your mouth when wisdom says to stay quiet. You can build a reputation as someone who can be trusted with sensitive information because you know how to keep it sensitive. The difference between success and failure often comes down to knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Rebecca spoke when she should have stayed quiet, and it cost her everything. Now let me tell you about Thomas, a man who understood the power of keeping his mouth shut. Thomas worked as a janitor in a Fortune 500 company. Every night, he cleaned the offices while the executives went home to their families. People barely noticed him as he emptied trash cans and mopped floors. But Thomas was always listening. He heard the conversations that happened after official meetings ended. He witnessed the phone calls executives made when they thought no one was around. He saw the documents left on desks and overheard the private discussions in hallways. Thomas knew more about that company than most of the board members. The difference between Thomas and Rebecca: Thomas never said a word for 15 years. Thomas went about his work quietly. Executives grew comfortable around him because they knew he wasn't a threat. He became invisible in the best possible way. People forgot he was there and spoke freely around him. They trusted him with their secrets without even realizing they were sharing them. One day, the company faced a crisis. A hostile takeover was being planned, and someone was leaking information to the competitors. The CEO was desperate to find out who the spy was. Meeting after meeting was held, but they couldn't identify the source of the leak. Finally, someone suggested they asked Thomas, not because they suspected him, but because they realized he was everywhere and saw everything. When they approached Thomas, he didn't just tell them who the spy was, he told them exactly how the scheme was working, what information was being passed, and when the next meeting was scheduled. Thomas had known about the spy for months, but he had kept quiet because no one had asked him directly. His silence had earned him such trust that when he finally spoke, his words carried tremendous weight. The spy was caught, the takeover was prevented, and the company was saved. The CEO was so impressed with Thomas's loyalty and wisdom that he offered him a position in the security department. Thomas accepted and eventually became the head of corporate intelligence. The quiet janitor became one of the most trusted advisors in the company, all because he understood the discipline of strategic silence. Strategic silence isn't about being weak or passive. It's about being smart with your information. Thomas understood that information is power, but only when it's used at the right time and in the right way. He didn't waste his knowledge on gossip or small talk. He saved it for when it really mattered. When you practice strategic silence, you build a reputation as someone who can be trusted. People start sharing more with you because they know you won't repeat it carelessly. You become a safe space for others to express their thoughts and concerns. This trust becomes your greatest asset. The executives at Thomas's company felt comfortable talking around him because they knew he wouldn't judge them or expose them. His silence created an environment where people could be authentic.